It's one thing to get an understanding of a place by reading about it or visiting it 60 years later, but you actually see people interacting. I'm Kevin Greenbank and I'm the archivist at the Centre of South Asian Studies. We're releasing our collection of amateur cinefilms, mostly taken in the 1920s and 30s in India by Britons who were working in India. We've had them digitised and put on DVD, and now they're going to be made available online. The films are the 1920s and 30s equivalent of home videos. They're shots of families in their homes, of people's lives in India. They were just made by Britons who would have been working in India for the government at the time or for British companies that were established in India. The collection has an enormous range of subjects. It covers trips back to the UK, it covers ceremonies and pomp and circumstance, the funeral of Lord Brabourne and the arrival of the Viceroy, and tours by the governor and royal visits. It covers everyday events, children going to school. It has the Freemasons marching through Calcutta. We have Indian protests, aeroplanes, trains, canal building, everyday life, and also the process of building an empire in terms of building an infrastructure and in terms of running it through the civil service. And the empire at play as well, the immensely privileged life that the Britons led with their tea parties and their horse races and their summers off in Shillong and in the hills to escape the heat, and all aspects of life.
I'm Dr. Anna Maria Motrescu. I've been working for about 3 years with the Center of South Asian Studies. This collection contains about 280 films, and most of them are without intertitles or voiceover commentary, and even also very few came with background information in the form of letters or diaries that the filmmaker or the donor would have provided at the time of donation. They represent a raw material, a raw resource for historians, whether they are historians of the colonial period, British colonial period in India, or film historians or visual anthropologists.
We've found actually that social historians are particularly interested in the films because it shows things that aren't recorded in documents or books. It shows the way people dressed and actually shows it rather than a poor description. We've got two collections that deal particularly with partition. One of them was taken by a member of an army relief group that was going around to assist people, and those are very harrowing films of immense trains of people crossing great distances, taken from the air and then from the ground amongst the trains, and there are dead bodies on the floor and vultures and dogs picking at the bodies, and there are massive burial programs taking place, and also starving people and injured people, and real tragedy occurring. The other collection is taken in Lahore and shows people arriving on trains or in trucks at what is obviously a reception depot and then being bussed into Lahore city. That just shows the scale of people arriving, and it shows the refugee camps and tented areas set up inside Lahore.
In these films, there are scenes from which we are learning quite a lot about what British and Indian women experienced, lived through, and also the way they presented themselves to the camera while being part of the British Raj, of the colonial way of life. And while we start deciphering that the Memsahibs, the British women in India, might not have always enjoyed times at the racecourses or hunting, they might have also shown in very short scenes signs of boredom or anxiety or solitude. We also learn about the experience of the Indian women who were not always ayahs, childbearers. They were also princesses, and there were also women who traveled to England. And there is one scene where we have an ayah with her English baby that she's in charge with on a beach, on a sandy beach in England. And all these cross-referential experiences, they do teach us a lot about what have meant actually to be part of the empire, both in India and in England, as a woman.
My personal favourites are, I like some of the sillier films because these are home movies and they're often quite light-hearted. I love the Ski Club of India, which is these, I want to say nutters, who travelled up to the north of India and must have looked so bizarre to the local population and set up a ski club. And they are awful at skiing. I mean, this is a film just of people falling down and crashing into trees and disappearing off the side of the shot as they just go in completely the wrong direction. I love that film. I think that's great.
Today, home movie making is part of our daily life. Of course, we are not using 16 or 8mm film anymore. We are using HD film cameras. But home movie making has become a first-person narrative that we all employ. And for school kids, for example, watching home movies from 1930s made in India, it's a way of learning about a time that it's still, I would say, shrouded in various stereotypical representations.
We're seeking funding next to link our film collection with our recently digitised and available online oral history collections, so the films will make a documentary and the oral history will provide the commentary. And we're also going to produce a second disc with unedited film and audio content so that students will be able to make their own documentaries or to do a critique of the way in which we made ours. I think it can serve as an interesting introduction to a part of our history which has been largely hidden, largely I suppose because we're not too proud of it. It's interesting that India and empire have only just recently come back into the school curriculum in the last couple of years, and it could be a very useful resource for school teaching. You're not aware just how great the number of people in the country is whose parents and grandparents and great-grandparents worked in India and who want to know more of their lives. And it also shines an interesting light on the principal engine of the empire. In India was what funded the whole imperial process, and the imperial project was funded with the labour of empire, and this is a fascinating spotlight onto that.